Good morning, church. My name is Darren Mulligan, and I sing in a band called We Are Messengers. My good friend Joe Shirk, who plays in the band Big Daddy Weave, asked me if I would like to share with you all today. And so it's my great privilege and honor to do so. So I'm going to be speaking about those three incredibly weighty words that Jesus says while on the cross in John 19:30. And it's this: it is finished. So let's get stuck in. We're going to see what John thinks of Jesus and how he describes him right at the beginning of his gospel. So, John 1. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. So, John is describing Jesus as the Logos, this incredibly creative force within the Trinity. And so, it amazes me how we end up with the Word of God, the Word made flesh, Jesus Christ, the King of glory, hanging naked on a tree, being crucified, having been mocked and scorned and ridiculed and abandoned. And there he is, hanging on a tree, and his very final words are, "It is finished." So it got me to thinking, what exactly is Jesus pronouncing as being finished in that statement? And I think the only way to really figure that out, or at least some of that out, as much as my Irish brain can, is to go right back to the top of the scriptures. So when we go back to Genesis, we see God speaking everything into existence. Everything. Stars are hurtling into space, the sun and the moon, and fish are swarming in the seas, and every kind of animal that crawls and creeps is on the earth. And then God, after this creative flurry, slows everything way down and takes his time as he goes about creating the crowning glory of his creative masterpiece, and that is the first man, Adam. And so we see God with a different level of intentionality. When it comes to Adam, the scriptures say that God formed him and us out of the dirt of the ground, and then he breathed life into his nostrils. So it's a really beautiful, intimate story of creation where God demonstrates a different level of intentionality towards us than he did towards everything else. You see, God really loves us. Hard to believe, but it's true. And so what happens with Adam and Eve? They go eating from trees they shouldn't have, strange trees. And we've all done that. We've all sinned, all fallen short of the glory of God, and we have all chosen to eat from trees we should never have eaten from: pride and envy and lust and greed and malice and gossip. And those are the very things that caused our separation from God. Our sin separated us from his loving kindness. But God didn't leave us there, and immediately set about this redemptive plan that we see throughout all of the scriptures. And all of it is leading up to this pivotal moment on the cross where Jesus is crucified, taking the weight of our sin and our shame and our condemnation upon himself as a perfect, sinless sacrifice, the atonement for all of the mess we have made, past, present, and future. And there he is, naked, blood and water pouring from him, asphyxiated, dying. And he says this: "It is finished." And then he bows his head, and the spirit is released. And we know that he rose again 3 days later. So what was he saying is actually finished. So I've got just 4 or 5 things here to finish. What do I think in that incredibly weighty statement that Jesus was saying, "It is finished"? What was he referencing? I think the first of those is our sin and shame and our condemnation is finished. He on the cross removed that as far from us as the east is from the west, never to be remembered against us. We are free, and there is no shame for us found in Jesus. He also finished the empty, pointless religious practice that was popular in that day and honestly can still be popular in contemporary Christian communities, whereby we think if we're good enough and we do good things and we keep things traditional, that God will love us more. You know, Jesus on the cross says it's finished. He doesn't want the blood of bulls and lambs. He is the spotless lamb slain for all of our sin. So you can keep your religious practice that does not come from a place of love and worship. He doesn't need it. The other thing that is finished is the idea that God is angry, distant, and cold. Jesus is demonstrating on their cross, that he loves us so deeply. Because barely would a man die for a righteous man, but Christ died for us while we were still sinners. He's incredibly loving. What also is finished is the idea that the gospel is about being good. The gospel is not about being good. The gospel is about being in love. You cannot earn grace, you cannot buy it, you cannot steal it, you cannot barter in order to receive it. It is a gift of God. Nothing to do with our works, lest any man shall boast. And on the cross, Christ opened a way, made that gift available to each of us today. And finally, it is finished. I think this is beautiful. Jesus Christ is the firstborn from the grave. Firstborn from the grave. And in doing so, he destroyed death, stole the keys to Hades, set a host of captives free, and the promise for you and I, for those of us who believe in him and who are found in him, is that we shall not perish, but we shall live forever, because it is finished.